And guess what? I'm inviting you down to Texas to check out my life. Let's go. All right, everybody, my name is Dominique Henderson. I am your YouTube CFP, founder of DJH Capital Management, and we normally talk about economic empowerment, financial literacy, and personal development. But for the month of December, pretty much, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes in the life of a financial advisor, showing you some of the things that I deal with, showing you, some of my takeaways from 2018, what I'm thinking about for 2019, from a personal and business standpoint, and just kind of, pausing a little bit, pumping the brakes on the educational content, which I hope you love, and I love creating it, as I'm going to get into and talk about that. But I think it's important as just a creator, there is a side of me that wants you to know that, financial advising life is a great life. I love what I do. I love working with clients. But there is another side of me, just like you see right now. I got my alma mater shirt on. I went to PV. This is something I love. So two things I love: my alma mater, Prairie View A&M University down in Houston, Texas, or very close to Houston, Texas. And I love holidays because it allows me to spend time with family and friends and develop and cultivate relationships. So that's why you see the Santa hat on. And if you're watching this years to come in like July, so what? What can I say about that? So let's get started. The morning formula, right? So Hal Elrod talks about this, and it's called Lifesavers, right? So you'll have to read the book and get the background, but basically, SAVERS, the acronym is, and I'm gonna go through how all of those aspects work for me. So, first it's silence, then there's affirmation, then there's visualization, exercise, reading, and then scripting, right? So, or journaling, right? So when we're thinking about at least for me, silence begins, my typical day is like 5:30 in the morning or so. And I'll come in here and right behind you in that area right there, I'll have, my Bible open and I'll read some scripture, or I'll just meditate and do some deep breathing. And that's the better part of 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so. This depends on the mood and the season I'm in, but I'd say on average, it's about a half an hour of that. And that just kind of gets me to setting my tone for the day, and really kind of establishing the mode for the day, right? The energy that I'm going to pull into that day and bring into that day, and how I'm going to interact with everybody and my family, my clients, everybody. So that's a very important thing. Usually I can kind of go back to the times that I didn't do that on a consistent basis, and my days are just off. Affirmation, I think, is important. There's just so many things in this world that in our society, specifically the U.S. culture, that keep us with this negative image of ourselves, right? And we're always trying to get boost, people to gas us up, if you will, on just really what we should already be thinking about ourselves from just from a positivity standpoint. So the affirmations part of this is really just kind of reciting the things I know about myself, and the things that I know that to be true about myself. Now, these are not platitudes, but they are kind of like attaboys, and if you can't attaboy yourself and say, pat yourself on the back, then why would you expect other people to do that? So visualization is all about, the V in SAVERS is visualization, and that's all about what I'm dreaming for. I've talked about this in podcasts way back in the day, before I got my digital media coach to help me with what you see now, which is not the best, but it's gotten way better. I digress. Sorry. Shout out to Heather. Heather just create. Anyways, the whole point about visualization is dreaming, right? It's, as adults, we don't really dream enough. As kids, we dreamed a lot. Wild dreams, right? Limits off, no ceiling. And that's what this part of my routine is about, is really concentrating on where do I see myself, where do I want to go, and not limiting myself by the constraints that I currently see myself in right now. Exercise, I can't say enough about this. Health is wealth. There's been if you follow me on social media, that, like, I like to swim, so there's time with me in the pool and the gym, just because that's what I believe in, and I want to live, frankly, to be 120 if I can. So my wife laughs every time I say that, but the point is I believe health as well. So a part of that morning formula, not necessarily done in the morning for me, but definitely inside the day, 3 to 5 times a week. If it means that I'm in the pool, or I'm in the gym, or I'm walking the dog outside, catching some vitamin D, whatever it is, but it's some type of activity during the day, several times a week. Reading is fundamental. I mean, how can you get away with this? I'm a big audiobook person, so I consume most of what I read, which is probably anywhere from 1 to 2 books a month through Audible. And that's just a great platform for me, just because of how much time I have to actually be sitting holding a book versus listening to a book. So that is my, that's just kind of my discipline. And maybe in a separate podcast, I'll go kind of through some of the books that I've read that I think will be good. But why don't you just hit me up in the comments if you want to know that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, the scripting, the journaling part, I think is huge. Being able to identify your weaknesses, your strengths, what you want to work on, what you've done good at, or what you've been doing good things about, or things that you challenge yourself and then accomplish, rather. That's what I'm trying to say. Just being aware of that. I think journaling for me has brought a lot of self-awareness, right? So being able to see also this progression of your life in good seasons and bad seasons, in highs and lows, and peaks and valleys, so all that kind of stuff. So I think all that's good, and that's kind of my brain diet. And again, if I'm not doing those things, I can very just kind of like look at the trajectory of life and be like, that was a down period. So I try to incorporate that pretty consistently in my life. This is kind of weird. It keeps slipping off. It's a little bit too big for my head. I thought I had a big enough head for this Santa hat.